Usually, when it comes to postseason awards in the NFL, there are two that get the most discussion and the most debate going. That is the MVP award and the Coach of the Year. And typically, a lot of times, the MVP award seems to be the quarterback award for the quarterback that plays well on the best team, is what it seems like. Whereas Coach of the Year typically goes to a guy who's led some big type of turnaround. A team that was in the top five of the draft, they've now made the playoffs. A team that won 6 games as a number one or number two seed in the AFC or the NFC come playoff time. And I get that. And I understand that because it's really easy to quantify that. It's a really tangible thing to sit there and say that, hey, this guy, especially a new coach, when a new coach comes in saying, hey, they took over this crappy situation and look how they've turned it around. It's really easy to see. And a lot of times that guy can be the coach of the year. Sometimes I think it could be even more difficult to get a good team, a great team to live up to expectations and overcome the challenges of a season. Having to go on road trips, having to sit there and overcome injuries to key players, and so on and so forth. But when I look at this year's Coach of the Year award, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to somebody that led some type of big turnaround, and it's okay. But to me, there is one guy that is clearly head and shoulders above the rest. Whereas the MVP award, I could really have made an effective argument. I felt for four guys. For me, when it comes to the NFL Coach of the Year, there is only one argument to make for one guy, period. Now, I will talk about some of these other names. I think it's going to come down to five guys potentially. I do. I think they could go any number of different ways, but potentially up to five guys. Even though, again, I think there's one guy that's clearly head and shoulders above the rest. But a couple of other guys I wanted to throw an honorable mention out to. Andy Reid. It's easy to mock Andy Reid. He's never won a Super Bowl. His last couple of years in Philadelphia with the Dream Team, as Vince Young called them, were a disaster. But this is a guy that went to, like 5 NFC championship games in Philly, went to a Super Bowl. This is a guy that has the Chiefs in playoff contention year in and year out. When you look at the entire body of work, Andy Reid is starting to create almost a Hall of Fame resume for himself as a head coach. He is. And like I said, sometimes it's easy to focus on the negatives or knock him for certain things. But clearly he does a lot of things right. He got a Kansas City Chiefs team that has a very conservative game managing quarterback in Alex Smith to go 12-4 in one of the toughest divisions in football, win the AFC West, and has a number 2 seed in the playoffs. Got a first round bye out of this. In a division where they had to bang with Oakland and Denver all year long. This is one of the most well-balanced, complete teams in all the football world, and that in part is reflective of their head coach and how he puts his guys in positions to succeed. And I think Andy Reid, it's sad because he doesn't get nearly the love as a head coach that he frankly deserves. Another guy I think has done a really good job in his first year as head coach is Ben McAdoo. You talk about the first-year guys leading a turnaround. The Giants, you talk about a team that haven't been to the playoffs since their Super Bowl season of 2011. 4 straight years of missing the playoffs with Tom Coughlin. And Ben McAdoo takes over year 1 and they go 11-5. People are talking about them as a potential Super Bowl threat as a wild card team. They would have won a lot of the other divisions in football going 11-5. I mean, they beat the Cowboys twice. I mean, Jesus. That's a hell of a coaching job. I don't care what anybody says. You win 11 games with inconsistent, erratic, and frustrating Eli Manning. You're doing something right. And then I look at Mike Mularkey, too, and the job he did in Tennessee. Took over after Whisenhunt was fired, shed the interim label, and got the Titans this close to the playoffs. This close. Like even Week 17 with Matt Castle in. They still found a way to beat the Houston Texans, right? Yeah. I mean, they went 9-7. A team that had the number 1 overall pick in the last draft came this close to making the playoffs. Weak division or not, doesn't matter. It was an impressive turnaround. You see the clear progression in Marcus Mariota in year 2. You see what this offense was able to do in terms of controlling the football with their 200 running back monster of DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. I mean, Mike Mularkey did a hell of a job here, and he's going to get no talk for Coach of the Year. So I want to make sure I mentioned him really quickly. Now, to me, there's 5 guys, like I said, that I could see getting a lot of love, although I think 4 of them are probably going to get the most love. Number 5 is Jack Del Rio. I expect him to get a lot of love because the Raiders are in the playoffs for the first time since 2002. He came in. You could really tangibly point to the turnaround there. The fact that the Raiders finished 12-4, even though they didn't win the division, they still made the playoffs. Obviously, Del Rio's done something right. Something's working well. Why he's not higher on my list is because he's ultimately a defensive-minded head coach, and that defense stinks. Khalil Mack is a stud, but a lot of the rest of that defense isn't very good. And I just can't give a guy Coach of the Year when his area of expertise is the weakness of the football team. Number 4, Adam Gase, Miami Dolphins. I don't expect him to get much love, but he really should. This is not a very good Dolphins team. And even though I picked them to finish second in the AFC East before the season started, that was as like a 7-9, 8-8 team. And you're talking about Miami Dolphins team that started off 1-4 and ended up finishing 10-6 and making the playoffs. It was a hell of a coaching job, clearly. And he's just not going to get much love. Number 3, Dan Quinn, who's a guy that I would expect, could get a lot of votes and may end up winning the Coach of the Year award. And I understand it. You talk about a Falcons team in year 1 under him that was kind of disappointing. I didn't see a whole lot of reason for incredible optimism in year 2 under Dan Quinn, and I was wrong. 11-5, NFC South champions. I mean, they sat there and handled business consistently throughout the year. Number 2 seed, first round bye. You're talking about on the defensive side of the ball too, whereas Jack Del Rio's defense has been very, very weak. Dan Quinn's expertise is the defensive side of the ball, and that Atlanta Falcons defense has definitely improved. You look at, young guys from the past couple of drafts like Vic Beasley with, I think, 15.5 sacks. If I'm not mistaken, I think he even led the league. Their first 2 picks in this year's draft, Keanu Neal and Deion Jones, who everybody mocked to talk about their massive reaches, his system fit them very well, and they played very, very well. So you could point to Dan Quinn's impact on the defensive side of the ball. Matt Ryan's had the best year of his career. That offense is as dangerous and explosive as it ever has been in Atlanta during Matt Ryan's time there. Now, Dan Quinn's going to get a lot of love, and deservedly so. Number 2, I expect this guy to get some love, but he probably won't get as much as he should because it's the Cowboys, but Jason Garrett. When you talk about a team that went 4-12 last year, and with his 2-star players being a rookie quarterback that was taken to the 4th round, and the rookie running back that was taken 4th overall, the Cowboys went 13-3. They were consistently one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the NFL all season long, with a rookie quarterback. A former backup quarterback at the NFL level got Dak to play well outside of himself and well above himself, in my opinion. And, that's got to factor in the fact that they went 13-3, best record in the NFC East champs in arguably the toughest division in football. They dominated, and they ultimately ran away with it. They've got home field advantage throughout. You look at the success of the rookie quarterback and the rookie running back and how they've been able to mask the defense. Jason Garrett has done a hell of a job there. And even when you look at the losses they had this year, they potentially, you could look at it, lost their opening game of the season to the Giants because Terrence Williams didn't have enough awareness to get out of bounds late in the game so they could attempt a late field goal to potentially beat the Giants. Then in the second Giants game, they allowed Odell Beckham Jr. to pop off one big play, and that was the difference in a 10-7 loss. So in the 2 losses to the Giants, they lost by a combined total of 4 points, basically because potentially of 2 plays. That's crazy. And then their other loss came in Week 17 where they weren't even really trying because they honestly had nothing to play for. And they just kind of rolled over, went through the motions, and let the Eagles beat them. That's how the Cowboys came to be 13-3 this year. Yeah, Jason Garrett deserves a lot of love. But to me, again, there's one guy that is clearly head and shoulders above the rest. Like him or not, care for him or not, you have to respect the dude. You have to recognize that Bill Belichick is the best coach in the NFL today, and it's not even close. You have to recognize that arguably Bill Belichick is the greatest NFL head coach of all time. Lombardi, no, doesn't matter. I think Belichick is potentially better than all of them. The best coach in North American professional sports. When you look at the Patriots and the entirety of their body of work this season, you're talking about 14-2, best record in all of football. AFC East champs again for the umpteenth dozen time since Belichick took over in 2000. Just incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. And then when you look even deeper, you see that you've got arguably the greatest quarterback of all time playing there, which is why sometimes Bill Belichick probably doesn't get more love as a coach. But he didn't have that first ballot Hall of Fame, arguably GOAT quarterback of all time in the lineup for the first quarter of the season, the team still went 3-1. And even when he reinserts Tom Brady, who's probably going to be rusty because he didn't play the first 4 regular season games, this team still went 11-1 the last 12 games of the season. And that's even after in the offseason trading away their best pass rusher, in Chandler Jones. And that is even after during the season trading away arguably the best playmaker at linebacker in Jamie Collins. So you go a quarter of the season without the best quarterback arguably of all time. You trade away 2 of your best defensive pieces, and you don't really skip a beat. Oh, and to top it all off, arguably the best tight end in the league, Rob Gronkowski, is out for effectively half of the season, and you've done just fine. You've not only got by, you've thrived. And what other coach in the league could do this? The answer, in my opinion, is nobody. And while it's easy to sit there and point to the great job Dan Quinn did, and he did, you could point to the great job Jack Del Rio did, and Jason Garrett did, and Adam Gase, and some of the other guys that I mentioned, who did a better pure coaching job than Bill Belichick? Because not only did they play well consistently, they were the best team in the league consistently all year long. In spite of all the challenges and obstacles and injuries, they overcame all of it. And we're talking about the New England Patriots again, potentially being the favorites to win Super Bowl 51. This is madness. This is crazy. I mean, I'm just saying, the guy trades away 2 of his best defensive players, and the defense really isn't any worse for the wear. You go a quarter of the season without your Hall of Fame quarterback, and in his place you start a guy who had 0 career starts in his first 2 years in the league, and Jimmy Garoppolo, who then gets hurt after 2 starts. So that way you play Jacoby Brissett, your 3rd-round pick, who wasn't quite ready for NFL action just yet, coming out of NC State. And you go 3-1, 2-0 with Garoppolo, 1-1 with Brissett. How in the hell is he not Coach of the Year? Like, for the people that are arguing that Brady deserves the MVP award, if Tom Brady deserves the MVP award, they should rename the coaching award to the Bill Belichick Award. Because that's how dominant he was this year. And I don't even like the guy. I can't stand the hoodie. But I got to recognize real here. And this dude is really good. He really is truly the best the game has today. And again, it's not even close. And when I look at all these performances of all these teams, I don't think anybody's coaching job was better than Bill Belichick's this year. Period.